three. My name is Nathan Kwao. Now, EdTech Monday is a platform for EdTech entrepreneurs, education stakeholders, and government reps to facilitate critical conversations on the use of technology for teaching and learning. The show is an initiative of the MasterCard Foundation's Regional Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning, ICT, and it's a part of the foundation's strategy to find solutions to Africa's youth employment by closing the gap in access to quality education and advance the integration of technology in education policies and practices across the continent. EdTech Monday built on the foundation's Young Africa Work strategy in Ghana with the vision of harnessing opportunities to shape the future of work and to create an inclusive economy with enhanced resilience for young people and the most vulnerable, especially women, by 2030. That's why in Ghana, the MasterCard Foundation has partnered with MEST Africa to bring you EdTech Monday on the last Monday of every month. And the show is live on the City Breakfast Show. Also, you can watch us live on Facebook via City FM's Facebook page and MEST Africa's Facebook page. What are we talking about this month? We are talking about improving foundational literacy and numeracy through hybrid models of learning. Now, a bit of a background. In the last 2 decades, education development in Africa, particularly primary school enrollment in Sub-Saharan Africa, has risen to about 99.9%, which is huge, and it's the highest it has ever been. But despite all of these, 9 out of 10 children in Africa read without comprehending the material by age of 10, by which point a child in school should be able to read and have basic math skills. Now, the need for foundational literacy and numeracy skills has acquired greater prominence in an increasingly complex and rapidly changing technological world. Now, without these skills, many children are unprepared for the learning that comes next. So on this month's EdTech Monday, we'll be dealing with that. We'll be exploring how the uptake of technology-driven education in the form of hybrid models of learning can increase the quality of education at a foundational level. And like we do, we brought in people who know their stuff, people who understand the topic, and will bring great insight and great perspective. Let me start off with Christopher. Christopher Nkrumah is education officer with UNICEF Ghana. He's a first panelist now. He's an education with over 10 years experience. 6 years of that has been spent within the UN. And his field is education programming in the development field. He manages interventions around a safe school learning environment, both online and offline. He's into digital learning solutions and programming on education in emergency, EIE, with UNICEF Ghana. He holds a Master of Science in Educational Innovations and Leadership Science from KNUST and a Bachelor of Education in Early Childhood Education from the University of Education, Winneba. Christopher, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Good morning to you.
Our second guest is Daniel Ameja Phillips. He's co-founder of Scribbleworks. Now, he's a co-founder of Scribbleworks Publishing House, an educational publishing house with the mission of promoting effective learning. Now, as a team lead for Scribbleworks, he's in charge of product development. He's also the publisher of the Assignment Workbook series, which combines a variety of assessment strategies to keep classroom assessment appropriate and consistent with national standards. He holds a degree in project management from the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, GIMPA, and he's a mentor on the Ghana Science and Tech Explorer Prize, where he shares his experience in product development with participants of the program. Daniel, good morning. Welcome to EdTech Monday.
Good morning, Nathan. Thank you very much.
Great. Our final panelist is Mrs. Donna Gordina-Page. She's Vice Principal, Infant School, Ghana International School. She's an experienced educator and has a particular passion for promoting early years good practice and for supporting educators to identify their strengths and unique teaching signature. Donna believes in empowering students, teaching teams, parents, and the learning environment, and enjoys working with a transformational vision. And she's mentored teachers and facilitated teacher training in London and Ghana. And she says all children deserve an aspirational, empowering, and holistic foundation to their lifelong learning journey. And for those who don't know, she's also a singer and a songwriter. She's performed in musical theater on TV in the UK. Donna, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much. And also good morning to your cherished listeners too.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. It's great having you guys here. Let me start off with Christopher. Christopher, primary school enrollment in Sub-Saharan Africa is great. 99.9% is, for anything, is always a good number. For all positive things, it's a great number. In terms of this, what is the case in Ghana? How many children are in preschool and in primary school?
Thank you very much, Nathan, for that question. I think looking at the Sub-Saharan African rate of 99.9, Ghana isn't doing bad at all. In regards to the primary school enrollment, Ghana is at 99.2%. When you look at the Education Management Information System data for 2020-2021, so it means that Ghana is just around 0.7 below the regional threshold.
Okay.
And at the preschool level, where I just want to emphasize that when we look at preschool within the Ministry of Education program, we're looking at the kindergarten, because that is directly under the Ministry of Education, the creches and nurseries under the Ministry of Gender. So want to flag that in kindergarten, the enrollment rate is 105.9%. So
wow.
You could see that Ghana isn't doing bad at all in terms of enrollment.
I see. Right. I see. Let me throw the next one to everybody. Let me start off with Daniel, and let's talk about the role that education technology can play in fostering learning and just laying the foundation for positive learning outcomes when we talk about literacy and numeracy.
Thank you.
And after that, everybody can also give their perspective on the same question.
Sure. So education technology actually sets the stage. Okay. So it comes with let's say you are able to assess students, with education technology, you're able to gamify the learning experience. It's making it more fun and engaging. You are also able to see their attainment levels in real time. Okay. And it opens them up to a lot of other possibilities. Children, can sometimes, with these technologies, they can even learn at a faster pace.
Okay.
They also have the opportunity to refer back, as we call it asynchronous. That's when you have videos and other learning materials that they can always refer back. So it gives them the chance to learn at their own pace. So essentially it sets the pace, for endless possibilities in education space.
Donna?
Yeah, so just on the piggybacking on you, from looking at it from how it affects our learners, there's so many opportunities to make educational experiences very exciting and also to take them from their boundaries. So for example, if you're using a Google tour, you can go to another country when you're learning about geography, or you can use it as a stimulus for writing. You can visit a virtual museum. You can talk about art. You can use it as a stimulus for you. You can use, even on your phone, everybody can get access to technology using their phone. There's apps for phonics. We're talking about literacy, children developing literacy and numeracy. There's apps that teach how to pronounce the sounds, how to develop the language in that way. Also recording for teachers.
Okay.
Teachers can record their best practices. They can share, they can in real time collaborate with other teachers in their own school, in other schools around the world, get access to the top most recent research for free using technology. Also, in just piggybacking on what you said, Daniel, on how students can also use it for asynchronous learning. So even whilst you're teaching the class, if you have a device in the classroom, you can be supporting another child to understand that concept or extending another child at the same time as teaching. So it's like extremely powerful. It also can stretch the imagination and develop a lot of creativity. You can ask students, what do you know? Can you show me? Could you video what you know? Can you present some of your research in a Google Classroom so that it expands who is learning, not just that person? You become a teacher rather than just a student. So there are so many avenues in technology that can be explored. For me, again, it's defining your unique signature as a teacher, getting help on how to manage your class, how to innovate with the lessons as well. So it's got wonderful scope.
Great. Chris, let me get back to you and I'll get to Donna too on this one. Now, from your perspective, how can education policies drive curriculum development so that they meet the needs of early childhood development and foundation learning what measures can be developed to effectively ensure that, to ensure the assessment of quality education after enrollment?
All right, thanks, Nathan, once again. Policies really articulate and/or shapes the unique needs that support foundational learning,
okay,
and/or address the needs of young children. Now, a smart policy design will support the implementation of a curriculum if they offer this logical and then feasible solutions that support the curriculum implementation. For instance, if a new curriculum requires the use of technology, which schools cannot afford, the policy may fail to be implemented through the curriculum, unless there are some arrangements at the national and subnational level for the implementation. Ghana has in place quite very relevant policies that drive education to address the unique needs and lay strong foundations for young children. Some key policies around early childhood care development policy under the Ministry of Gender, the early childhood education policy. You're looking at complementary basic education, the ICC in education, the F-Cubes, name them. There are a lot of policies that and strategies that are developed based on a lot of evidence, and these are giving best practices and learning and directing the development of key curriculum. And this informed the development of the curriculum that we're implementing now, that is a standard-based curriculum, which really focuses on the 4 R's: the writing, the reading, the arithmetic, and the creativity at all levels, the foundational literacy and numeracy for the early years. So it tells you that early childhood is a very critical area where we can make children. And that is why the Ministry of Gender, Ministry of Education have these policies, and they have really developed the developmentally appropriate standard-based curriculum to address the needs of children within this cohort. So policies really direct how we operate, or how we operationalize key sectors and thematic areas in the country. And I think the education sector have a lot of policies which have directed the development of the standard-based curriculum, which is also competency-based and really helping children to be really productive, not to fit in Ghana, but also globally, and have this kind of lifelong learning. And in terms of measures that can be developed to effectively ensure that the assessment of quality education after enrollment, Nathan, we're looking at assessments is at different levels, okay? There are some direct and indirect assessments, and with direct, we can look at the national standardized test that is being implemented, or some locally developed tests that are conducted for learners. But when you look at the basic school curriculum, it's categorized assessment under 3 different phases.
Okay.
We got a diagnostic assessment, the formative assessment, and a summative kind of assessment. So when children are enrolled in schools, there's a need to conduct this kind of diagnostic assessment. Diagnosis, just to understand children, just to understand where they are, and also even check their health and other things, so that it is strategic for the teacher or for the school to place children to be able to implement kind of age and level appropriate pedagogy. And I must say that UNICEF, Ministry of Education, Ghana Health Service, that's this kind of health screening for children on my first day of school, just to understand the health status of whatever. There are other interventions around strengthening teacher accountability to reach all students, differentiated learning, that also diagnose children's ability in reading and writing and place them at different levels so that the teacher can really effectively plan and attend to their needs.
Donna, do you want to provide a perspective?
Yes, I just want to add to what I'm going to go into the classroom, into things that probably people at home will be wondering about more, is then when you have these policies and they're in place, then there's the interpretation and the making them come to life. And those are the things that I am interested in. I am interested in how do you make assessment exciting for a student? How do you make assessment show you more than what your kind of your boundary of what you're looking for? So as again, if we're looking at the hybrid model, the hybrid model enables us to have our students demonstrate their knowledge in many different ways, because we know that students learn in many different ways. You have visual learners, you have kinesthetic learners, you have learners that are very structured and logical, some that don't, they don't like to even sit down. So you're teaching shape in a classroom and you want to assess, does Kwesi know that how to define a square? What are the Kwesi, you and your 4 friends go and make a square with your bodies. It's very different from sitting down and asking him what are the different aspects. And so those kinds of skills that teachers employ in the delivery of the policy is essential. And this is where you can upskill teachers, is you widen the scope of how they deliver the policies, how they deliver their lessons, how they reflect on their lessons. And technology is extremely useful in that. You can record your lessons with audio with your smartphone. You can listen to the levels of questioning you're using with children. Critical thinking is enhanced by the type of questions you use with students. If you're asking them questions that cause them to have to join all that they know already together, you're extending them already. If you're asking them to questions that make them have to collaborate, you're using 21st century skills. If you're asking them questions that they have to go home and research, you're extending their concept of learning beyond the classroom. So those are the things that also technology develops. Policies, I think, also should be futuristic as well. So you have your current, what you're dealing with currently, and you're thinking about, what does the future for Ghana, what does the future for our students look like? What are the qualities that are holistic, not just the academic qualities? What are the character features of our future that we want? Do we want our people to be analytical? Do we want them to be integral? And then you build that into how you deliver and interpret the policy. And not only the teacher is responsible for that, but also other stakeholders, that's parents and the community. And there's so many ways that you can leverage the community and parents and support them with that shared vision of together, we're going to make sure that our children are learning what we've literally said they're going to be learning. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. We're still listening to EdTech Monday on the 27th of March. This is the March edition. This morning, we are talking about improving foundational literacy and numeracy through hybrid models of learning. My guests, Christopher Nkrumah, Education Officer, UNICEF Ghana, Daniel Ameja Phillips, co-founder of Scribbleworks, and Mrs. Donna Gordon, PhD, Vice Principal, Infant School at the Ghana International School. You can send in your messages on 0549 986 996, 0549 986 996. You can also drop your questions in the comment section on our various Facebook pages, MEST Africa and City 97.3 FM. Daniel, let me bring you in. You've been quiet for a bit there. I think one of the most interesting things we highlighted from the beginning was the disparity between enrollment and the foundational literacy and numeracy. Now, what do you think our education ecosystems are lacking at that foundational level? What are the major things that are lacking there?
So I think it's a harmony of all the other variables, because if we've had enrollment go up 99.9% over the last 2 decades, okay, and as of now, 9 out of 10 students under the age of 10 years cannot read and comprehend what they are reading, then it tells you that even though we've had growth in access, okay, there's an imbalance with all the other factors. So talk of professional teachers who are going to handle all these kids. As the numbers have increased, I mean, the number of teachers must also increase proportionally. We are looking at instructional materials, the teaching and learning materials. So we've had this boom in access. Lots more children are going to school than they used to. Are there enough teaching and learning materials to support them? And you see, if the teachers are not also proportional, like with the growth, it means that the student to teacher ratio is going to increase. So it will translate to the amount of time and attention that the teacher can actually, give a child, during learning. And there's also poor infrastructure. So it's just that we've had an enormous growth. Okay, so we have more access now, but we need to now look at how all the other variables are also going to, match up to make sure that we get the quality mix of education This
Great.
is the idea.
Great. Let me just stay with you. Let's talk about the role of parents. I mean, how critical are parents in this whole thing we are discussing? How can parents equip themselves to effectively support the children at that stage, that foundational stage? What can parents do?
Okay, so let's do some basic math here. We have 24 hours in a day, and then children are to spend roughly, I think, 8 hours in school, and they're going to spend the rest of the day at home. So if you look at the ratio, children are spending twice as much at the time they spend in school at home. So it tells you that if the teacher the parent has to do like twice as much because they spend more time. So in equipping themselves, they first of all need to understand how the educational tools that the schools are using work. Okay, when they get the understanding of that, then they can appreciate, how to now support the child with it. So that understanding has to be there. And secondly, there's this issue of child security online, and also how safe, children. I mean, you give them devices, they start from one point, and where they end up is a different thing altogether. So that is where parental control comes in. Parents need to know how to monitor and control, how the children access these devices, and it's actually very easy. So for Google per se, those who use Android devices, there's Google Family Link, where you can set up. You shouldn't give a device to a child like set up in your own account, because it gives access to a variety of things. But when you are able to open a child account, you use Google Family Link, you can, and it works for, I think, children ages of 13 and below.
13 and below.
Yeah, so it helps you to filter the kind of content that they can actually access with the device. So there are other third-party tools too that will even notify you that your child is trying to download this. You can monitor their text messages. I mean, if they want to even download a tool like YouTube for videos, it will suggest YouTube Kids that has more appropriate content for the children. And on iOS too, there's screen time on iOS where you can use it to basically do the same thing, control, because children shouldn't have too much screen time. Yeah. So you can use screen time on iOS to do that. And there's also family sharing where you can do all those things. And when it comes to parental control, there are about 4 layers. The first one is in-app. So some applications on the devices come with parental control features.
Yeah.
An example is Snapchat. So you can actually, through your account, create an account for your child. And then you can decide whether the child can make friends or make friends, whether the child can do searches or not. So it's actually quite a safe space. Second one is on the device itself. So those are the ones I mentioned earlier on, where you can use Google Family Link, and so on and so forth. And the third one is on the Wi-Fi. So you can set restrictions on the Wi-Fi, yes, such that they won't be able to access certain websites and certain information. Yeah. So these are some of the things that parents need to understand how they work, and then it makes it easier.
Donna, let me bring you. Daniel mentioned something apart from the parents. He mentioned teachers, and there was this ratio. That disparity. How do we deal with the challenge of that disparity at that early childhood development stage, where there aren't enough teachers vis-a-vis the amount of or the number of children in classrooms? I ask this because you work in a school, so you see this.
Yes.
You kind of understand this far better.
There's lots of things that you do that can inspire people and motivate people to see beyond education being just for older. I want to be a teacher of older students. You speak about younger students. Some people have not even had an experience. One of the things in teacher training that is really important is to give scope. So if you're thinking about if you're thinking about why are you a teacher, your why. We always talk about the why, getting people to connect to their why. Why are you a teacher? You want transformation in some kind of way. Any person who teaches wants transformational understanding and wants to kind of deal with the status quo and bring almost the future forward. So how do you do that? So with younger students, if you look at data and biology, their brain makes the most changes and the connections than any other group. So that group, which you were talking about from 3 to 13, in terms of neurological connections, and it's the most impactful age that you can work with. So you inspire people to come, if you want to, I remember even doing a collaboration with our physics teacher. We got our physics teacher who teaches in the secondary section to come into the nursery. They were doing like learning about science through dance.
I see.
They were learning science about how you bond, the difference between like oil and water through dance. They were understanding mathematical and science concepts through the arts. And the physics teacher came down and was asking the students questions. And the answers that they gave the physics teacher that teaches at the highest level were so inspiring for him that he said, I didn't know that students at this age have those big ideas.
I see.
And sometimes you need to let people go to the younger students and have experience, put it in the curriculum for teacher training, that you have to have a certain amount of weeks working in with the younger students. And you have to be able to translate what you teach at a higher level to young children. That's a challenge. That's a mark of an excellent teacher. That's a mark of someone who can track backwards. So you remember that when we look at excellence, we have to go backwards to where it begins. Excellence begins with our youngest students. Excellence begins with how we plant seeds of how you learn, what best ways you learn. What are you going to learn about? What are you going to influence? What kind of leader are you going to be? This is how we talk to our youngest students. We call them phenomenal from the beginning. And we do that intentionally. And then we create ecosystems that support that. So if, for example, you have, as I said, the teacher coming from the older students down to the younger students, why doesn't that can happen anywhere? That's not based on money. That's based on that need or want to do that. And also in terms of recruitment, you then ask your question. Sometimes you look philosophically. What is it about the structure of our society here in Ghana that honors the older and recruits the older so much more than the younger? And what are the conversations that we need to have about that? And who are the other influences? Because as we say in our ecosystem, it's not just the teachers, it's the parents, it's the nannies, the helpers, the people, the community around us that can also contribute to recruitment. Radios, radio stations, the love and the passion for young children, promoting, highlighting that. All of those things go to building within the mindset of the community that children are important, that they're essential. And if we want to influence later, we start from the very beginning. That's a very, very powerful place to start.
Wonderful. Christopher, let me bring you in. Let's talk about the use and mainstreaming of hybrid models of EdTech. Can they lead to improved foundational learning outcomes? And if yes, how best can we implement them?
All right, Nathan, thanks. I think before I respond to this, I just want to add something small to what Donna mentioned. In terms of the teacher, student ratio at the early childhood level, I must flag that Ghana isn't doing that bad. Per policy, we've established that in early childhood center, we are looking at 35 kids to one teacher, right?
35 kids to one
teacher. But then when you look at the MEST data 2020, 2021, we're looking at the teacher population around over 63,000 for early childhood, and the student population over 1.8 million. So when you strike the difference, you realize that we have like one teacher is to 29 students. That is the situation now, which I think it's a much better situation. But maybe the issue might be with the fair deployment of these teachers. And I think that is a conversation that the Ministry of Education would respond to really appropriately, because of course UNICEF has supported the early childhood education policy development for 2020, and one of the key strategies in the policy is on teacher deployment and this, and so a lot of policy dialogues will be happening, and to ensure that there is this kind of fair distribution. But to my question around mainstreaming of hybrid learning models, I think the answer is yes. And looking at the age cohorts under 10, these are the children, I think, from primary 4 and below. because by 8 years you should be in primary 3, right? That is when children are in school in the appropriate age. And there are some characteristics of these kind of cohorts of children. Children under 10 years, trust me, they are very curious. And they want to explore everything. When you give them also digital devices, I'm sure if you have young kids in the house, when they take your phone, the kind of thing they can do on it.
Yeah.
And they really learn best when you use multiple strategies or pedagogical approaches to really respond to their respective needs. Donna mentioned something interesting about the learning styles of children, of everybody. Some people are audio learners. When you speak, they hear, they learn. Yeah. Others want to see with a lot of visuals, diagrams, and other things, visual learners. They kinesthetic. Those who want to touch, feel, play with it before they learn. And people want to read and write. These are learning styles. And hybrid approach gives you the opportunity to really respond to these learning styles and needs of these cohorts of children that we are talking about. Now, hybrid approach is very important, but then we need to also ensure that teachers are really, really equipped with the needful skills and capacities. Daniel mentioned it, and I think it's something that we can't just let go. If I have a packet, how do I utilize it? How do I integrate it? How do I mainstream it into my traditional way of teaching to ensure that you are addressing the various needs of these learners? So there is the need for the kind of teacher engagement that will be very intentional on helping teachers to integrate or to complement whatever they do with this digital learning devices, so that they are able to really utilize the hybrid approach in their classroom, because that is it. No teacher can stand in front of you and be using all these approaches to teach to address the needs of every individual. And mind you, there are also children with special needs.
Yeah.
And that they need assistive devices to be able to learn. Some need hearing aids, visual aids, and other things. And so we need to vary the approaches that we use. And so you can't really deliver in this 21st century without utilizing these hybrid approaches to delivering foundational learning outcomes. Yeah.
So listening to EdTech Monday, the March edition this morning, we are discussing improving foundational literacy and numeracy through hybrid models of learning. And I have Christopher Nkrumah, Education Officer, UNICEF Ghana, Dana Lameja Phillips, who is co-founder Scribbleworks, and we also have Mrs. Donna Gordon, PhD, Vice Principal, Infant School at the Ghana International School. All right, let's get our vox pop for the morning. So typically we'd speak to maybe students, parents, a larger group. But this morning we are speaking with Heather Beam. Heather Beam is an expert in this area, and she is from the Practical Education Network. She's also sharing her thoughts on improving foundational literacy and numeracy through hybrid models of learning.
I would love to share an example of what we are doing at Penn when it comes to incorporating online components into education. So before COVID, Penn was running teacher trainings fully in person. We would bring teachers together. They would get to practice doing different practical activities with their colleagues in person. When COVID came, we realized we had to make that 100% online, and we managed to still be able to offer training for teachers across the country online. But now that we're in the post-COVID era, we've realized that it's ideal if we actually combine some elements of online with some element of in-person. And I really see that as actually the future of education on the continent for Africa, is blended learning, putting together a combination of some things in person and some things online. I don't think we should fully be in person, because the way the world is moving, we're all on our phones and our devices all the time, and so education should also meet us there as we are on our devices. But then at the same time, we shouldn't also be 100% online, because we have real issues with connectivity and power and so on. So I truly see blended learning as the future of education on the continent. And I believe it's something that's possible to be done across many different age groups. I believe even from small children through adults, we can offer blended learning as a more effective way to engage everyone in learning. I think the key difference, if you're talking about very young kids, is that they need the online component to be more synchronous, which means that they're doing it at the same time. So it probably means everybody's on their device, but maybe there's an adult kind of guiding them together. Whereas if you're the older and older you get, the less synchronous you have to have the online component be. So you can choose your own time to watch a video and listen to a recording if you're an adult. But all the age groups, I think, can benefit from blended learning. To incorporate blended learning into educational systems, in Ghana, there'll be a challenge if we're targeting the students directly, because as it stands now in the public schools, students are not allowed to have devices. So for me, I see the most effective way to begin introducing blended learning in the education systems is through the teachers, because the teachers have their devices. Virtually all teachers have a smartphone, if not a laptop. And so I see that as a key way that we can start to make blended learning more and more common in the system, until we get to the point that the teachers are also capable and comfortable to now guide the students in digital aspects. And with the new curriculum, one of the core competencies is digital literacy. So we're expecting that students in school will learn digital literacy. But I believe that in order for us to do that, the teachers first need to be equipped in the digital skills. So I see offering training for teachers as a key way that we can start introducing blended learning into the system. And it will even help existing teacher training be more effective, because it costs less money to be offering the same program if you don't have to go physically meet a teacher every time in person. So I think blended learning should be adopted for teacher training as a key way to introduce digital and online learning into the system. I'm an advocate for us using locally available materials to teach all the topics, but especially when it comes to math and science, it's actually possible to use materials we have around us to bring those concepts to life. So if we're talking about numeracy, for example, at the basic school, if you're trying to teach counting and addition, you could actually have students manipulate things like a necklace or even a bracelet with beads and move the beads around as a way to practice counting, addition, subtraction. You can use bottle tops and manipulate them to show fractions. You can even have students themselves move around. For example, if you are teaching primary school students about telling time, you could have students move their arms in the form of a clock to represent the hours and minutes of a clock. So I'm advocating for us to use locally available materials to teach those foundational skills. And this can be done whether it's in person or even in a hybrid mode through the use of videos and recordings that we share. I'll also share that from our experience running blended training with teachers, which we have now run across 4 districts in Ghana, as well as for teachers in Rwanda and teachers in Liberia, we've seen that it's possible to offer education in a blended format. And even though we have real challenges of connectivity and availability of lights, cost of data, all of these challenges are real. But what we've seen, having done this in different locations now, we've seen that it's possible, and teachers are resilient to overcome some of these challenges. Teachers can be creative enough to find ways of dealing with these challenges and still persist to complete a training that's offered online or in person. So we shouldn't let those challenges prevent us from trying to really adopt blended education in our system broadly.
So those were the thoughts of Heather Beam. Heather Beam is an expert in the area, and she's with the Practical Education Network. Remember, we are still talking about improving foundational literacy and numeracy through hybrid models of learning. This is on our March conversation on EdTech Monday, and I have Christopher Nkrumah, Education Officer, UNICEF Ghana, Dana Lameja Phillips, co-founder Scribbleworks, and Mrs. Donna Gordon Apieji, Vice Principal Infant School at the Ghana international school. So you heard Heather, quite interesting thoughts she had to share. Daniel, let's talk about education commitments that need to be made by stakeholders so that we can reduce really or try and turn this crisis around at the level of foundational learning.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. Before that, I'd like to add to what Chris said earlier on about implementing hybrid learning in schools. So we need to pay attention to the fact that at that level, the implementation is the curriculum that should drive the technology and not the other way around. So it has to be aligned with the national curriculum and then the learning objectives that teachers have, okay? And then secondly, the National School Inspectorate Authority, NASIA, I think during the time of COVID, they brought a national e-learning guide and then a checklist. And it's a document that, helps schools in their journey to adopt e-learning, okay? So it tells you that you need to have an e-learning team in school. You need to have a clear timetable with breaks. It gives a checklist, all the things that you need to do to put in place to make sure that it is well structured, okay, and it is well administered. And then also, I think we need to look at the gap that teachers have in their with digital skills. So we need to do training and retraining of teachers so that they'll be able to work with these tools and platforms easily. Yeah. And then best use cases, we could look at something like Saturday classes where it's more informal. Okay, so that is a use case that we can actually do hybrid learning, where students can do some discussions online or so on and so forth. And also with mock exams. So for instance, our ScribbleWorks is one of the things we do. When children are going to write the BEC, we have a few tablets that we visit their schools. We make them write mock exams, okay, and then they see their results instantly. So what happens is that it takes some of the burden of the teachers, and it's a clear case of integration because they write mocks anyway. So when you give them that provision, like you are integrating it into the normal, and vacation classes too, you know, can be a very good approach to integrate technology. Yeah, so with the commitment, educational commitments that need to be done, I think we need to look at the infrastructure. Okay, simple things like projectors. Okay, a projector and a speaker could go a long way. Yeah, in a school could go a long way. So imagine, I think one of the subjects they do now is history. Now what are people?
Yeah, what up?
And so imagine playing a video of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, you know, in class just to, you know, elaborate or to pre-lead a lesson on independence. It goes a long way. And also there are other when you use a tool like Google Earth, okay, you could visit places
show them
like
different parts of the world.
Different parts of the world, and it changes. And the teachers also, I think they need support. Okay, yeah, it comes with some support because if a teacher is having challenges with some of these tech tools, who do they go to? Have the schools made that provision? It's one of the things that we need to look at. Yeah, so
interesting stuff. Final question, and this goes to everybody. So I'll start with you. We've spoken about the importance of all of these things: hybrid learning, numeracy, great things. But how beneficial is foundational learning to the well-being and future of Africa's growing population? Africa's population is growing, it's getting more and more youthful. And what does it mean to our own future in achieving SDG 4? And Ghana is big on meeting a lot of these goals, but really, how beneficial will all of this be to our own future as a country and as a continent, you know, at large?
So we're looking at placing ourselves on the worldwide stage and being very much aware of where our strengths lie, and being able to prepare our students to be anywhere in the world, including Ghana. Now, one of the things that, if you want that to happen as well, there's something that we do called technology in problem solving. And we use
tech in problem solving.
Yeah, we use technology in problem solving, not just to use technology in problem solving, but to place in the heart of every student a commitment to Ghana. A commitment to Ghana as in, what are some of the issues here that if we think and we collaborate and we critically think, what are some of the solutions? So we use like a model of that. The end game for me is always not so much the the how, it's the why and the end. So why are we using technology? Why are we doing all this? We have an aspiration for our children to be able to compete on the global market and to also dominate in some areas.
Yeah.
So as I kept going back to, it's one thing having all the hybrid, but that intention of rounding our students must be there as well. So that development of using hybrid technology to develop critical thinking, to develop collaborative skills, communication skills. Here in Ghana, there's an excellent tradition of oracy. So when we're thinking about early stages of literacy, why don't we start with oracy? What about the people in our community that have stories, that can tell stories, that can bring them to life? I was talking to someone about Disney. Disney's main character is who is that? Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
And everybody knows, we're in Ghana talking about Mickey Mouse. In Ghana, we have a history of Anansi, and that creativity and that literacy around Nancy producing books, producing a whole model, a whole industry around that big concept, and introducing oracy, oral storytelling. Our nannies at home can do that.
Mm-hmm.
The listening skills that come with developing literacy come from that. The rhymes, the games, all of that is language.
Mm-hmm.
And then we interpret it in a hybrid model. A child doesn't want to write. The projector may put on the screen an exciting scene. What do you hear? What do you see? What do you smell? Let's start to write those things down. We're in traffic all the time. When we stop in traffic, get our children to look around, look at the symbols around us, the language, the billboards, find the letters, start to use it. So, there's so many things that we can do. If we're thinking about also digital through radio programs can do a small segment, maybe a small story segment, get our influencers on. That's what people do to talk about literacy, to talk about stories. You can even have a proverb of the day to inspire critical thinking and to have conversations with families. Parents, you have phones on your devices. Schools can support parents in knowing what type of apps are useful for literacy and numeracy, and simple things like that. When you're away from your children, you may have had to travel somewhere, another part of the country. You can record a video of you reading and send it to your child on your phone. That's very simple.
Wonderful. Chris?
Yeah, I think foundational learning is very, very essential and it's non-negotiable, right? So because it provides the essential building blocks for all learners in terms of knowledge and even progressing in the education or academic calendar, you need this foundational learning. And basically it's around literacy, numeracy, your life skills, and other bit. Now, if you want to be successful in school and later life, you should have a strong grasp of the ability to read at the age appropriate level, to understand numbers, because these are the things that you carry on in or throughout your education ladder or attainment. So children who cannot really read or understand simple tests will really struggle to learn at any level. And when they struggle to learn, the challenge is about children might drop out of school because they are not learning. So this is really essential. And nationally, we could also count on the issue of greater youth unemployment and issue of deeper levels of poverty that we're trying to address. And so EdTech or education technology is very, very critical to bridging this gap. All right. So and then let me just wrap up here with that is the reason why UNICEF is working with government, different agencies to really promote foundational learning through diverse programs like the differentiated learning, learn at the right age, and all those things, plus implementing some digital learning solutions, because this is it. We need to, if you can't read, then you can't progress. And so we need to utilize all those EdTech solutions to really help us learn.
Wonderful. Daniel?
Yeah, I think they've said it all. But, let me add a few things. So yes, I see it more as a means to an end. It helps in attaining some of the other SDGs. So we are looking at reduction of poverty. When you're able to, sail through, finally, you get a decent job, or you can even create jobs yourself, just entrepreneurship. Yeah. So it also gives us a more skilled and productive workforce. So yes, helps us to attain some of the other SDGs. And in empowering the youth, girls, women, and other indigenous groups. So as Chris also said, it helps to transition because you realize that as you move up the academic ladder, there's more integration of technology. So universities these days, I don't think there's a lecture without projections and you having to do research,
Zoom class,
and all of
online,
that. Yeah. So
great.
and
Concluding thoughts. I mean, Donna, I wanted to ask something.
I was going to just say that one of the things that maybe we haven't spoken about in this conversation about technology, which is really powerful thing, is how technology documents ideas. And although it facilitates ideas by what stimuluses you use, like if it's visual and all that, it documents ideas, and ideas are what change the world. So some of the motivations for thinking in so many different ways is collaborative experiences through technology, so that you're not limited to who is physically available to you. You have access to some of the best authors, some of the best mathematicians, some of the best teacher training, some of the best virtual experiences, so that your total holistic learning goes beyond what is physically available to you. And that's a really important aspect of technology. And also to remind people as a stimulus for our learners that we need you to be literate, because what you carry inside you, your ideas, your wisdom, your brilliance needs to be shared on a wider scale, and literacy will help you with that, and numeracy.
Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to my guests. This morning, we're talking about improving foundational literacy and numeracy through hybrid models of learning. And it was an honor speaking with Christopher Nkrumah, Education Officer at UNICEF Ghana, Daniel Ameja Phillips, co-founder ScribbleWorks, and Mrs. Donna Gordon Apieje, Vice Principal Infant School at the Ghana International School. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through. We appreciate that. It was a wonderful conversation, and I'm sure we'll get to do this again sometime soon.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your listeners as well.
Great.